What behavior did you develop as a child to get the attention you needed? That's quite a question, I know. I discovered that half of my life I've actually been busy trying to be seen and liked. And that is quite a confession for me to make here out in the open where I can actually be seen. I only saw the patterns in these behavior styles a decade ago while I was developing my own personal leadership. And I think that it all started at this moment. Here I'm 3 years old. I had a happy childhood, loving parents and a brother and sister, loved to play outside with friends, and I had a cat Maria, played the violin. And what do you see me doing here? I see myself standing with my shoes in the mud, while feeling secured by a doll or what's left of it in one hand, and trying dramatically to communicate with my other hand. And even if you see my eyes, I can see some daring and charming eyes. I really wanted to have the attention. I think it's a mixture of different behaving styles in one. I really tried to get the attention, especially from my parents, and especially from my father. I really like to be seen by him, by the behavior I'm trying to act. So I tried to copy behavior styles with the assumption that I was going to be actually seen better or liked better. So I copied behavior styles of people. For example, I developed the tough cookie. Whenever she's triggered to come out, I feel the tension in my muscles. I can hear her thought. I can do everything. I'm not afraid. I got to know her voice, what her ambition is, what her thoughts are. This way of thinking of myself, I got from the theory of Sell and Sidra Stone, two psychiatrists in the US who developed the method called voice dialogue. They stated that a person is not made up with one, but with a number of different selves. So I simplified this theory to work with for myself, and I call those selves my me's. And my tough cookie is one of my me's. And because the fact that I have different me's in me, I tend to see myself as a metaphorical bus, full of different me's. And the bus has a driver, but the driver is only being influenced most by the me's that are actually seated up front in my bus. And they tell the driver where to go and how to get there. So I call those me's that are actually seated up front my dominant red me's. They tend to drive the driver. And at the same time, at the back, there are also the me's that are not being heard because of the red me's actually blocking the way, blocking the sound, not giving any space or energy to my green me's. I call them my green me's at the back. So let me introduce another set of dominant red me's that I actually copied during the beginning of my career. And maybe you can even recognize some of those me's in your development. So for example, there is the Miss Fix-It. She thinks, and she actually acts in the moment. I'll fix it, I'll do it. Even if it's not my turn actually to fix something. And there is the I do it my way, because I was taught this way, and I always did it this way. I will keep on doing it this way. Do you know those me's? And there is also this Miss Money Me in me. She always saw opportunities to make money for companies. Lots of money for companies. And if I'm honest, she mainly felt valued because of the fact that she was able to earn a lot of money for companies. So my boss, as usual, was driving as usual, in business as usual. And I was hired because of the acknowledgement of those rat-dominant me's. I gathered up with other bosses, mainly driven by rat-dominant me's, and we felt like we were tough cookies and we were going to fix the world. And somewhere during my career, I really felt more and more uncomfortable in my bus with all of my me's. There was a sound from the back of my bus. Hello, Eva! At first I didn't hear it. But actually it tended, there were other voices in me. It was not my plan to only work for shareholders' value, no. I developed an interest in my green me's, so I explored some of them. I'll tell you about them, some of them. So there's the moral compass in me. As a child, I was longing for peace, happiness, playfulness, equality. People who know me, they know I have some morality in me, not trying to push it on everyone. And there's also the insecure me at the backside of my boss. But she was not going to let herself seen in business, especially. Because I felt that feeling insecure was not something to be valued for. Now, I'll give you an example. I worked for retail companies and I had to negotiate quite substantial budgets. But I was actually a poor calculator. And so what I had to do is really make sheets with pre-calculated situations. And I did not dare to admit that I was a poor calculator and I needed help. What a waste. And there's also at the back of my boss, my self-care me. Well, look at me, I've not been taking good care of myself. Because of the rat-dominant me's, they really pushed me to go faster, harder, cheaper, more. And resting and being in nature was for sissies, was my assumption, actually. So it was life-changing for me to actually get to know all my 23 different me's. So many me's I do have. I'm still developing to get to know more me's. It was life-changing to know them, to be aware of the impact it had on me, those me's, but also on others. In my role as a mom, as a friend, as a colleague. So I felt a decade ago, I really needed to have some personal leadership. So I've been coached by really good professionals. And together we tamed the red me's and we encouraged green me's in me. So what did I do? Well, the tough cookie in me, she's actually caged at the back of my boss. She may come out every now and then, but only if she's allowed to get out. And to be honest, she comes out, I think, twice a year, bursts out, and then I have to deal with the consequences. And Miss Fix-It, she needs to count till 30, sit on her hands, think first before coming into action. That helps. The I do it my way me, well, actually, I started studying again. Wow. Should all do it. New insights, new perspectives. Nobody has truth. The last one, the money me, actually, she became aware of sustainable business models. That feels much better. And the green ones, my morality, she's actually trying to ask up front in situations, what do you think is important in life? It's much better to share that knowledge and what's driven you before you start working together. There's also the insecure me. At the moment, I feel very secure in insecurity. I dare to ask the question, can you please explain? I don't understand. And always there are people who's telling me, oh, I was so glad actually you asked, because I also did not understand. So as leaders, as teachers, as mothers, we should acknowledge the fact that we don't know. Let's find out. And the self-care, well, I'm getting better day by day. So I got to design my sustainable seating plan for my bus. Right now, I'm in control most of the time. I scan what the context is. What's the goal? What is my role? And how can I adjust the seating plan in my bus to become more a sustainable leader of myself, of my bus, and also to the situation or the team or the goal I'm trying to manage. I transformed myself after 25 years in business. I became a teacher in retail management here at the University of Applied Sciences, and I became a leadership trainer coach at the Knowledge and Leadership Institute. And here I got to know people, individuals, management boards, students. I get to know them very well, but also their bosses and some of their me's. And you know, some of the me's, they really mess up meetings or situations every now and then because they're not in control of their own bosses. Let me give you some examples. A finance guy who actually was pushing a takeover, he got into a fight in his board and he asked me to help. And what turned out that the boss of this finance guy was driven by, I want to win now, me. And it turned out that I want to win now, me, he always lost the board games of his elder brothers. So he was so fixed on letting them and the world know that he was a winner as well. Another example of a green me leading was this manager who got the feedback of his board that he was not having enough strategic overview. He did have it, although his boss was led by Mr. Perfect. And Mr. Perfect only let him share the strategic plans until he was 100% sure, which he never was. What a waste. Together they could have enriched actually the strategy. So I work a lot with teams and individuals in very different situations. And I tend to see that whenever there's a change coming up or a change needed, maybe even at home, as small as boiling an egg, if you do it differently, then some people get stressed because it's not the way they used to do it. Do you recognize that? But also in business, with new sustainable strategies, new markets, how are we going to deal with new regulation? I see that the red me's in buses are really trying to keep the bus as usual, on the track as usual, on business as usual. They're really pushing their efforts to keep it that way. While at the same time, in that buses, the green me's at the back, some of them do see opportunities in new ways of working, in new ways of thinking. So my quest is to open up the inner dialogue between the buses and between the me's, because we have so much more in common if we just open up about all the different me's, and then change becomes sometimes much easier. Together we're having this huge challenge. We have to reach the Sustainability Development Goals in 2030. That's quite a challenge for countries, organizations, buses, me's. It asks a lot of our agility within our buses to work with all of our me's, but also together with other buses and their me's, to come up with solutions to solve the challenges we're facing at the moment. So I think we need a new style of leadership. A style of leadership that is aware of selves, of the me's, but also aware of the whole system. And I think then we will be able to develop sustainable leadership. Therefore, I'm actually proud that I'm becoming an ambassador for the organization that's called the Inner Development Goals. Because if we not also focus on the inner, we cannot make the change. So how about you and your bosses? Do you know who are your most dominant red me's driving your bus? Can you think of some names? Do you know how they speak, how they feel when they take the wheel maybe from the bus? And do you know what are the most valuable green me's at the backside that are calling you, hello? Can you hear them? And are you able to actually create your sustainable seating plan in your bus? I believe, as people, if we can take the lead of our own buses with sustainable seating plans, I really truly believe that together we can solve a lot of problems. And I urge you all, including myself, to be open, more open, because that teaches others and we get to know each other. We see what we have in common with your children, with your students, with your direct reports, with your peers, with your managers, your stakeholders, your shareholders. We do have, and I know because I'm seeing so many people with all their me's, we have so much in common. So let's open up. And I hope this talk will inspire you to reflect on your own me's, on your own seating plan, and that you will also be able to create sustainable leadership. Thank you.